Hey guys, welcome back to Luke's Goldies, and in this video, I'm going to talk about what happened in 2017. What started this whole goldfish breeding and keeping frenzy, and what started it all? How did this all start? Well, I'm going to tell you. I was 16 years old in 2017. I just turned 16 right in the beginning of it. My brother and my sister-in-law got me this little 1.5-gallon tank. And it was an aquaponics set. I liked gardening, so they thought, let's get in this little aquaponics, a little mini aquaponics set. I don't really know what fish are supposed to go in there. I think a betta, but like 1.5 gallons is not big enough for a betta fish from what I've heard from the betta community. But it was this little tiny tank. It was meant for, I think, a betta fish or betta fish. I ended up saying, I don't want a betta. They're too slow. They don't move. They're not like active and fun. I'm like, I want something that's a little more. I want something that's a little more active. So I went to the pet store and I saw goldfish there, 3 goldfish. So I bought them. One of them was Calvin, one of them was Donald, one of them was Maurice. I still have Maurice. You guys know Maurice from the outdoor stock tank. He's huge now. I still have him. So I bought those 3 guys from the pet store. It was a 1.5-gallon tank, tiny thing. I quickly learned, that was a stupid mistake I made. I didn't even cycle or do anything. I just threw them in a little 1.5-gallon tank with some little herbs growing on top. Very stupid. I made a ton of mistakes. Quickly learned that was not big enough. I was having to change the water all the time. I got a bigger tank. Guess how big it was? Ready? 8 gallons. Oof, not big enough. I quickly learned that was not big enough either. I finally got a 40-gallon tank. And then I made another stupid decision, and I went and bought more goldfish. 3 goldfish in a 40-gallon is good. You'll be able to handle that. I went and bought like a bunch more. I ended up having like 7 or 8 goldfish in there. And then I had 2 fantails. I bought 2 fantails at the pet store, and then they started chasing each other. And I'm like, are they bullying? I was actually about to take the male fantail back and give him back to the pet store because I'm like, I don't want it anymore. He's bullying my female one. He's bullying the other one. Then I realized, oh no, this is how they mate. So I quickly researched it, and I just looked on YouTube, and I looked on different articles. I looked up how to hand spawn and breed goldfish. I'm like, why not? This would be a fun little thing to do. I love learning new things. I love trying new things. I have a lot of different hobbies. Like I play the cello. I love gardening. I love weightlifting. I love cooking. I love all kinds of things. I got a lot of interests. There was even one time where I was obsessed with juggling. I learned how to juggle. So I got a lot of random little interests. I'm like, why don't I just pick up goldfish keeping, goldfish breeding, whatever. Little did I know the little rabbit hole that I entered and all the things it would turn into. So I decided I'm gonna start breeding goldfish for fun. This is like a fun hobby. I love goldfish, so I'm gonna just start doing this for fun. So soon after I noticed them chasing, I hand spawned my first batch after just doing like an hour or so of research, and my first batch was successful. My first batch of baby goldfish was successful, but still at this time I was a complete amateur. I didn't know what I was doing, and basically from January of like 2017 to, I don't even know, like to June, like the 6-month time span around there. Like it started from the 1.5-gallon tank all the way to the 40-gallon and breeding. Like it went that fast in half a year. I went from like having a little tiny thing and not doing what I was doing to actually breeding these guys and raising these little fry. And my first batch was successful. Soon after I raised I got started raising my first batch of, it was fantail fry. The first batch was fantails. I began looking into other goldfish. I was thinking maybe I can start selling these things on like a larger scale, and I could actually make this hobby pay for itself. I love this hobby. It's so fun. I love the fish, but it takes a dent out of your wallet. It does take a dent out of your wallet, especially the more fish you have, the bigger that dent is in your wallet. But I'm thinking, okay, if I go and start breeding the most expensive goldfish out there, I'll have more expensive goldfish per gallon space I'm using, and I'll be able to actually make enough money to maybe break even and have this hobby pay for itself, or possibly even make a profit. So I'm thinking, this is awesome. I get to do all this stuff, and I might be able to make it pay for itself. So I researched the most expensive breeds, and I found the Ranchu goldfish. And I'm like, what is this thing? I'm like, what is this? It's the cutest fish I've ever seen. I fell in love with Ranchus. I actually got one at my local fish pet store, Nubbin, my first Ranchu. I bought him at that local pet store. He went through hell because I made a lot of mistakes again after that. But I bred him multiple times. I got some more goldfish off King Koy and Goldfish, I believe. And so I had a bunch of little babies. I bred them all over the place. I was selling them to friends, people at work, people at school. I even sold one to a teacher at school. I got in contact with a local pet store and started selling to them. And at a point, I was like, okay, I'm getting enough money in that it's equaling the money out. Like, I'm actually able to have this fun hobby basically pay for itself. So I continued doing that for a good couple of years all throughout high school. But then once I got to college, I kind of had to stop breeding so much and selling so much because I really didn't have time. I'd have to constantly I commuted to school. I lived on campus for the first half, but actually come back every weekend. I had auto feeders, come back every weekend, feed a bunch of veggies, do water changes in all the tanks. So I couldn't breed during my first semester of school because I was just so busy. I was at school the most of the week. But once the coronavirus pandemic hit, I'm like, okay, wow, I'm back home now. I can start breeding again. So I did do another batch kind of recently. I tried doing it with my ranches I already had at first, but for some reason I was unsuccessful. But I ended up buying some new fish, and those ones actually ended up spawning. So I bred those new ones. But basically, since January of 2017, I just kind of got thrown into the hobby almost on accident from this little gift. I just randomly got into it, and then halfway through that year, I was breeding, and I just started breeding all these guys. And like in that time span from my first batch of fantails, and then I've probably bred at least maybe 10 or so batches of goldfish. A couple of them which were unsuccessful. A couple of those batches were unsuccessful, but I think I did at least 10 or maybe even more batches of goldfish since then. And basically what I'll do is, like, now that I started using my social media, I was able to sell a lot through there, a lot of local pickups, and then eventually I actually started shipping. People were begging me to ship this whole time, but I was so nervous about it. But now I have the hang of it. I'm not really nervous about shipping anymore. But yeah, since the coronavirus pandemic hit, I was able to start basically selling a lot more through social media because I focused a lot more on the social media aspect. And now I have like 2 million followers on TikTok and over 100,000 on Instagram. It's been a blessing. It's been really something amazing. But yeah, I started as an amateur idiot that didn't do any research with a little tank, quickly upgraded, and then they started breeding themselves. I decided to jump in and just say, okay, I'm going to do this hobby. And then I got more tanks and a pond and everything, and now we're a whole little gig, a little goldfish gig. And I'm loving every part of it. And it is tough to do sometimes while I'm doing my chemical engineering degree at the same time, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. And my hope is that as soon as I'm out of college, I'll be able to actually turn this into like a little business, like a little actual business where I'm not just having it pay for itself, but something where I'm actually breeding a lot of ranchers here in the United States and selling them. I want to specialize in ranchers because those are my personal favorite. But eventually, once I'm out of college, I do kind of want to launch my own good-sized business if I'm able to, of breeding a lot of nice ranchers here in the United States. But those are just my future dreams. We'll see what happens until then. Just for now, I'm just going to be sharing the stuff I know and continuing to keep my little chunkers happy. But yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Luke's Goldies out.